I want to talk about the Ravens Steelers game. It was the last game of the season of the 25-26 year, and this game was really important for both teams because the loser goes home, the winner makes the playoffs. So let's talk about this game for a second and just the pressure that kickers are under in these types of situations. So to set this kick up, I want to talk about I think it was 4th and 7, right around midfield for the Ravens. They threw a great pass, a great catch to put them in position to kick a game-winning field goal. Now, think about a game-winning field goal in this situation. If you miss, you let your whole team down, you go home. If you make, you're the hero. You're on front of every newspaper and website you can think of. So you're either the GOAT or the hero in this one. So Tyler Loop is the kicker for the Ravens. And I want to talk for a minute before I talk about the actual kick about the importance of pregame warm-up. Now, you understand why I want to talk about this before I talk about the kick, because think of the pregame warm-ups as almost like a reconnaissance mission for kickers. So most people think of pregame warm-ups as just a time to go out and get loose, to kick a few balls, to gain a little confidence, but I didn't use it that way. Yes, I did get loose, I did kick balls, I stretched and all that stuff, but it was my time to figure out the wind conditions in the stadium. Every stadium is different. This is one of the hardest places to kick in Pittsburgh because of the swirling winds. And so every stadium is different. So you really have to go out each stadium you play in, and try to figure out the wind. Because what you see on top are flags blowing in a certain direction, but on the field it may be the total opposite. It's almost like a vacuum effect on a field. And I'm not saying this is what happened to Tyler Loop on this, but in my opinion, this is what I see, is that maybe the wind conditions were either underappreciated or something just slightly happened that wasn't right during the kick. So several things could have happened, but this is kind of my take on what I see just from watching the game film. It looked like he was trying to aim the ball just a little bit left of center, maybe even left goalpost. I'm assuming that the wind was left to right in this situation just by the way the ball took off, because once it started just slightly right of his target, it continued to drift to the right. And so these are the things you pick up in pregame. How much will the wind affect me in this direction from this distance, which it wasn't a short field goal. It was 44 yards, so it was not a short field goal. Plenty of time for the wind to affect the kick. So in my opinion, the way the ball came off of his foot, and as you watch the clip, the ball comes off just slightly, looks like slightly right, with almost like a left to right rotation on it, but the bottom of the ball is almost kicked to the left a little bit, which almost accentuates a left to right wind. When you're in pregame warmups, I always used to, as a kicker, because I kicked in college at Notre Dame, but I used to think from 40 to 50 yards, 40, 45 yards, I may need to start this ball outside of the left post if there's a left to right wind. And that way I'd use the wind to move the ball into my target, which was obviously down the middle of the goalpost. If this ball started out in the middle of the goalpost and the wind's blowing left to right, you can obviously tell that the ball's going to blow right of the right post. So you have to, as a kicker, play the wind. Now there's ways, and I talk about this a little bit with my students and my holders that I work with, is that there's little tricks that you can use almost as a holder to combat the wind. It looks like from this clip that the ball actually starts out middle of the post or even slightly right of center. Well, with a left to right wind, you know that ball is going to be right of your target. So either he didn't aim the ball far enough to the left, or something technical happened in his technique. Maybe his hips were slightly open at impact or something that caused the ball to start out right of his intended target. So it's these situations where kickers, I guess you could say, earn their money. You can be a great kicker, but still choke in pressure situations. It's the great kickers who thrive and who perform and who execute in these pressure situations and not let it bother them. I can remember one of my favorite quotes from Lou Holtz, playing for Lou Holtz at Notre Dame, and I took this with me throughout my whole career. He used to say, pressure is a feeling you get when you're not confident in your abilities. So if you think about this, obviously Tyler Loop is confident in his abilities. Maybe he was just affected by the wind. But some kickers just get crushed under the pressure. They can't perform. And I've known many of these guys who've come through the league who are great talents, but mentally they couldn't take these pressure situations. So just remember, if you work on something long enough and you work on something it's almost second nature to you. These guys have kicked hundreds of thousands of balls in their life. Just because there's 12 seconds left on the clock doesn't mean that the field goal post's narrow or the ball's different. It's the same kick you've practiced over and over and over again, and you know you can do it. And that's the mentality you have to take into these pressure situations.